Hello everybody, I am Samuel 15 the Dragons here today, and today we're doing yet another uh, deck list and interview with Miguel Adriao?
Adriao.
Adriao, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. But yeah, he's here to show us with his Mega Mewtwo Y Toad deck, and he managed the top 8 week 3 of Idaho, and yeah, he's been generous enough to share this list with us. So, first things first, why did you decide to play this deck?
Well, pretty much just throughout the play testing and was looking at Mewtwo, looking at the just damage swap cards like Mega Turbo,
Mm-hmm.
DCE, all that type of energy acceleration, really just made me think, all right, this Mewtwo deck's got a lot going on for it because there's multiple ways to take a knockout, and that's what I really like about it. You got damage swap, which works against anything that doesn't one-shot you. So you can either, damage swap and just take out like Shaman, babies, you get through Focus Sash, and you heal your side of the board.
Damage
Pretty much.
swap is a lot better than what than a lot. It's a lot better than what people think it to be.
Oh yeah, it was pretty dirty. And a lot of people wouldn't expect it. A lot of people just think that I'm going Psychic Infinity, and then all of a sudden, turn 6, I drop my Shrine of Memories, mid game, or even if I just do it early game, it messes with their math and it makes it really complicated. And something that I played against quite a bit was actually Manetric Bats, and with Damage Swap, it almost just made that matchup like completely one sided. Damage Swap almost makes every game one sided, in my opinion. To be
It's really
honest,
good.
it's just so oppressive. Like unless you can one shot him or unless you can keep me locked out in some type of way, it's almost like laughable just looking at how it can almost go. But again, there's always those games that can go the other way. The obvious big problem playing a psychic weak deck is Night March.
Yeah.
And Night March was just blowing up more and more and more every single day, literally every tournament. I think it got like 65% of the total championship points throughout, the state 4-week state tournament.
Oh.
So, going into a tournament expecting to see that much Night March and knowing everyone's going to play Night March, playing Mewtwo is probably not the smartest thing to do. But I also sat down and thought, what's Night March's biggest weakness? Toad, item lock, that simple. And I didn't want to play Trevenant because I wasn't very comfortable with it. And I really didn't think, and I do think that Mewtwo Y Shrine can just beat everything except Night March, and then Toad beats Night March. So just go
Yeah.
with that. Um, Throughout testing, I actually played against a lot of Night March, and throughout my state tournaments, I actually played against a lot of Night March. I always got to top. I was always like one game away from top 8, pretty much, or top 32 in California. So that speaks for itself. And my losses were, I only had like a total of 6 losses throughout the whole state tournament, throughout the whole
Mm-hmm.
month,
Yeah.
and
It's pretty nice.
it was it was nice. And they just came at the wrong times though. Well, I had like one loss to Dragon Ray, and then I had one tie to Dragon Ray and one tie to Night March Bees,
Yeah.
and the tie just came down to time, and that was the first week. That was here in Nevada, and then week 2 was where was week 2? I don't think I actually played in week 2. I think that's the one I stepped out on because they were all on the East Coast. And then step 3 or week 3 was Idaho, and we can talk about Idaho really quickly. There was a 7-round tournament.
Mm-hmm.
First round, I sit down and I play against Whale Lord. It was against an Idaho player. He was pretty confident. He was very confident with his side of the matchup. And I actually hadn't played against Whale Lord, so I was a little bit. I was like, oh crap, what could happen here? But pretty much, I just loaded up a Mewtwo, and I was able to either one shot his whales or one shot his Aegislash with the Hex Maniac.
Yeah.
And once I was able to take out one of his big knockouts, I would then set up a Toad. And at that point, it was just draw pass on both of our sides. We ended up going to a game 2, which actually went down to time, but because I took the game 1, I ended up winning it.
Yep. That's how it usually goes against deck out decks like that. They barely ever goes to game 3.
And that's something that I'm really not comfortable with. I don't like deck out decks. I don't like lock decks like that where you're expecting to only play one 50-minute game or something like that. Just doesn't seem fun to me.
No, that's why I've always tried to avoid them. A lot of my friends have done the same. Some people do enjoy that, but those people are just dirty, silly people in general.
They're Whale Lord players.
Yeah, they're Whale Lord trolley players.
They're Sableye, Garbodor, Time
Yeah,
Puzzle.
yeah.
I
So
went to that, and as soon as I actually signed the match slip, one of the judges ran over to me though, and he said that he needed to talk to me. So I'm like, oh, what could it be? And the head judge asks me, like, he's looking at my deck list with me. He's like, hey, what'd you write down right there? And I'm like, Toad. And he's like, but what is it really? And I'm like, Seismitoad. And so he like, kind of like chuckles about it, and he tells me he has to give me a game one loss round two. And I thought that he meant like the whole round. So I was like, oh, well, that sucks. But he's like, no, just the game one. So you have 15 minutes to play, to win two games. And so I'm like, okay, I guess that's not too bad. And I forget who I was playing against, but it was another Idaho player. And he was actually streaming the event. It was Josh Roset. And he was playing, I might be butchering his last name, but he was playing Night March. And I remember I flipped over Toad, and then I see Night March. I'm like, oh, that's not good. I managed to get the turn one Hex, and then I think his turn one, he had to get rid of two DCE, and I also hexed him, so he was just pretty out of it after that. I think he ended up scooping just to go to game three, like probably 3 or 4 turns into it, just
yeah,
because Toad Lock was just over. I think he only ended up attacking with Night March one time. But then game three, he got very, very unlucky. He starts shaming passes, like he plays a couple items out, but he just passes. And then I send up a Mewtwo, and then by my turn two, I just hit him with a Mewtwo for the knockout on his lone shaman. On his turn two, he wasn't able to get anything out. So that was really unfortunate for him.
but it was really fortunate for you that like you kind of dodged a bullet there. But I think you've learned your lesson, not to just shorten names like call just putting Toad on a deck list does not work.
No. Yeah. I was counting my blessings. I really was. And it was funny, too, because the guy that told me and gave me the warning, he, like, ran over and high-fived me. He was like, Stanley, you could still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Idaho staff was really awesome. But easy thing that should be really avoidable every time.
Yeah.
It's funny. People plan for weeks to go do these trips across, country,
Yeah.
but they don't write down their damn deck list. Like, so yeah, that was good. Round three turns around, and it's Trevenant. I forget this player's name. He was 2-0 at the time, though. He was doing good. I think he ended up getting top 16, but he missed his turn one Trevenant, and then I set up a Mewtwo. And pretty much, I like playing against Trevenant because it's actually kind of fun, and it's a really 50-50 in my opinion, because they play the Dimension Valley, which makes you be able to Psychic Infinity a little bit easier. And then you can also damage swap, and they're doing twice as much damage. So you can damage swap more effectively and quicker, but it's also riskier because you can get one-shotted, or I guess, two-shotted a lot quicker, or just a Silent Fear, and then one of the Tree Slams would do enough. So I actually know to take two Silent Fears and one Tree Slam, and that's enough to one-shot pretty much anything in the deck at that point. So that's, it's a little bit of a weird matchup. It just depends if they can get their item lock on their first turn. If you can get a turn of items or not, really. I was able to get it, and then something that's really effective, I think, that I really like in the matchup is just Hex Maniac, though, because if you're lucky enough to get it turn one, you can still play out your items, or just even at any point in the game.
Yeah, Hex Maniac is just so good in general in this format right now.
Absolutely. I think if you are fortunate enough to go first and you can have a decent setup and you end up Hex Maniacing at the end of your turn,
Yep.
I think that almost settles the first game right there.
Yep.
Which is very unfortunate. Moving on, though, I ended up winning that series 2-0. Game 2, I forget exactly what happened, but something pretty detrimental happened on his side of the field where he missed. I believe he ended up missing one of his double colorless. And so he wasn't able to attack with a Tree Slam, so he had to just do a Silent Fear. And then at that point, and he had to do the Silent Fear so he can knock out my Hoopa, if I'm not mistaken. But then he had enough damage stacked up on my Mewtwo so I could damage swap on his Shaman. And that was it. That ended up being the game. But he figured he had to do something, so I think he ended up doing the right choice. But it's just how it goes.
Yeah. So you're 3-0 at the round 3, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, going to round 4, what do you play?
Round 4, I played against Matt. I'm going to butcher his last name, too, but
That's
like Townsburg. He's another Idaho player, and he was playing Dark. And Dark was something that I actually have not played in Standard.
Well, what kind of Dark type deck? Yveltal, Zora, Gallade?
It was Yveltal, Zora, Gallade.
Yeah, what did you?
I believe he had Max Elixirs in there as well. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's standard in the deck or not.
that is very standard in the deck. It's called YZG for short.
Okay, okay. He ended up running a pretty good list, though. I believe he ended up getting my Maxis out turn one of our games.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much what ended up happening was Gallade being weak to Mewtwo makes it not that detrimental because Gallade can't one shot any of my Pokemon anyway. Well, she can knock out the Shaman, but that's really it. So it wasn't very helpful on his side of the board. And whenever he did damage, I was able to damage swap it. Like that was the biggest thing. The
Damage
dude
swap is really good.
I would damage swap, and then I would either use damage swap to knock out a Zoroark or a baby Yveltal, or I would just use it to heal myself and do some damage, and then next turn do damage. Now, I think the biggest problem with that matchup though, your big attacker is Yveltal, and Yveltal does 20 times, Mewtwo does 30 times, so it's just like it's not going to go anywhere for you. You know, like he would stack up. I felt bad because he would stack up. He judged me, okay? He had a great hand, and I had a great hand too. He sets up a Yveltal. If I'm not mistaken, it had 2 energies. And then he judges me. And off his judge, he got like a DCE and a muscle band. And my hand was like Mega Turbo, Trainer Mail, and I believe a Lysander. And so I just draw.
Stacked hand.
Yeah, and then my top deck was another Mega Turbo. So I'm just like, all right. Retreat, Mega Turbo, Lysander the Yveltal, and it was just like, boom, that was it. Scoop to next game, like, and that's just how it goes. Because once the
stuff
Yveltal,
happens, that stuff happens all the time.
yeah, the Yveltal is just too strong, or not strong enough for the Mewtwo. I mean, so the Mewtwo's 30, it just hits too hard, and he's got 40 more HP. But my favorite play this entire game though was game 2, and I was actually about to scoop it. I thought he had it. And what ended up happening was, again, I actually got judged into. I think he either ace trainered me or judged me, but I think it was a judge into a really small hand or really bad hand. And all I had was like energy, fighting Fury Belt, and I think I had another Mega Turbo, but I didn't even have a Mega in play. And he knocked out my current Mega, and so I just send up my Mewtwo that has no energy on it. I draw. I actually get a Versus Seeker, so I can pull up Lysander, pull up something that was on the bench, attach an energy and a Fighting Fury Belt, and I do 40 with my Mute EX. Shatter Shot for the 40. And that was something I literally never thought about doing because the Fighting Fury Belt's just in there for Toad, so you can take more hits from Night March.
Yeah.
So I just never even thought about putting the Fighting Fury Belt down on Mewtwo. So that was cool. So I got that. At this point, I'm 4-0. Round 5 comes up, and this is when I got my loss of the day. I forget against who it was again. He was playing Garchomp though, and he made it into top 8. So
Garchomp made top 8. That's interesting.
Yeah, he had a very, very consistent list. He ran Garchomp, Garbodor, if I'm not mistaken, but I never saw Garbodor.
No. What was this player's? Oh, you just said you couldn't remember this person's name.
It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Elijah something, but he wasn't top 8. That's as far as he made it, but it wasn't top 8, so should be somewhere. But game 1, I made a really big misplay. I wasn't doing the math right. He had the fighting energy and a basic energy. Assuming he got another basic energy or another fighting energy, I didn't think that he would have enough to take the knockout. But he also plays Fighting Stadium, whatever the Fighting Stadium is that does 20 more to EXs. So that gave him enough damage on his turn 2 for his Garchomp to do enough damage. And I just didn't do the math because I didn't think about it. I actually hadn't played against Garchomp yet, so I just didn't think about it very much. As soon as he did that, I just scooped, went on to game 2, and then my first turn, I missed playing a Mewtwo and an Energy down. Both of those. I played like Shaman. It was like Shaman and Toad and an Energy on Toad, which, I mean, Toad's not bad in the matchup at any means, but still. Sent that up, and then his turn 1 was just really good. My turn 2 comes back to me, and I miss getting a Quaking Punch off because I couldn't move my active Shaman. And so then his turn 2, he just knocks out the current Shaman. And at that point, he had, I think, 2 Garchomps and a Gabite ready. So it was just like, it was over. I kept playing, but he just literally took 3 knockouts 3 turns in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, it was literally the most consistent Garchomp list I think I've seen. I was happy that I lost, round 5 to him as opposed to, earlier or anything like that.
Brad won to a Pokedad.
Yeah. you
Which
know,
actually did happen to someone I interviewed, within the last couple of days. They lost round one to Pokedad, and even though they were X1-1, they bubbled out a top cut because of that. So
yeah, it can happen. That's something that just sucks in the game. It really does. Um, Damn, that would suck. I'd be pretty sad about that, especially if I drove all the way to Idaho.
yeah.
So we drove like 9.5 hours. I was sleeping in the back the entire time. Get there, I wake up, I get out of the car, and I walk around for 5 minutes, and then the tournament starts. Didn't even go to the hotel. But anyway, so that was that round. This is leading up now to round 6, and this is the round that actually got streamed. I'm gonna be getting the video of that pretty soon. He still has to like upload all the videos, but whenever we get that, I'll send it to you.
So
But
and I'll put in the link or put in the comment section, hopefully, if I remember.
yeah, you guys, if you guys do watch the game, it's a pretty fun one. You guys should be pretty familiar with Finnegan Lynch. We played
Yeah.
against each other. It was round 6. He was playing Greninja. I was playing Mewtwo. It was streamed, so there's really not much to talk about the game, but it ended up going 2-0. Greninja's it's a weird matchup because if you need to be able to either hit AZ or Hex Maniac like at the end of your turn, so you can either AZ or Shamans or Hex Maniac, so they can't do all their shenanigans. Otherwise, I think it's almost a one-sided matchup for them. But if you get, if you can actually hex at the end of your turns or just avoid playing Shaman, if you're fortunate enough. I don't think I was. I just needed to actually hex an AZ at the end of every turn. But if you're able to avoid it, then I think Mewtwo is going to have the upper hand just because of damage swap. Also comes down to how many stadiums everybody plays. If they're playing 4 rough seas and you're playing 3 shrines in 1 parallel like I am,
Yeah.
then it just comes down to if you hit your stadiums at the right time. Parallel City, though, was super clutch. The reason I put it in there was because Mega Ray beat me. Yeah, Mega Ray beat me so hard that I was just like, no. And I knew it was going to happen again because I knew Sammy Sosa liked playing me. And I knew that he was going to be in Cali. So, like, literally, my thought process was I'm going to run into one of the Sosa brothers next week. So I should put a Parallel City in here now and just toy with it. I ended up being right, by the way. I played Sammy round 4. And he was playing the Mega Ray, and my Parallel City ended up winning me game 1. But that's a story for another day. But continuing with the Greninja game, though, game 1, I ended up going 2-0. I believe game 1 was rather one-sided, and then I think game 2, it came down to just the hexes, like I said. I could be mixing that up. It could have been just a mix-up of the games, but they were pretty good. It was actually the first time out of like every tournament I've been to, me and Finnegan and I probably played each other like 1 out of every 3 of those, and he's always stomped me. So like I don't even think I beat Finnegan in a friendly game before. So that was cool to finally do it. Yeah, that was about it. And that was against Greninja though. That was a matchup that I was comfortable enough with that I didn't mind playing against, but I also knew that it came down to the draw of either having a good turn 1 or just being able to hex. And Pokemon Center Lady is pretty nice too, but not as nice when they're able to do it for if they're able to water shuriken twice or giant water shuriken twice.
Yeah. Toad would probably help in that matchup, especially for the early game.
What's funny is that's what some of my friends told me, but for some reason I didn't think about using Toad in that matchup. I don't think I ever Quaking punched. I don't recall, but I do remember thinking, dang, damage swap's all I'm gonna have to really focus on. I mean, it ended up working out for me, but I do remember thinking like Toad's not gonna be that helpful, and I realized Toad would be super helpful because Toad would have won me the Garchomp game.
Yeah.
So it was just a weird thing to think about. I was just really, really, really worried about because I know Finnegan's a great player, so I was really, and I know he plays very consistent decks, so I was just really worried about the 120, 140, 180 drop that they can do. So my thought was just if they do it, I'm gonna have to damage swap. Otherwise, it's gonna be a 2-1 prize trade, and they're gonna win it. So that was kind of how I thought about the game.
Not to mention you have to have quite a bit of energy on Mewtwo to one-shot it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely it. My thought process was mostly let them. I wasn't trying to use Psychic Infinity too much. It was all about damage swap because he
Yeah.
has to do something. So if my board is just Mewtwo, you have to do it. You can't just sit there and wait, and because eventually I'll just start Psychic Infinity, and so I believe he played 2 Jirachi in his list too, or maybe just one, but if I remember right. And I do think Jirachi ended up being something that I had to think about playing a DC down or not, and then I ended up not. So Mega being able to use Mega Turbo, 'cause the only matches you can't use Mega Turbo is against Trev and against Toad and against Vileplume, I guess.
Yeah, basically item like stuff.
Yeah. So anything that doesn't item lock you, being able to use Mega Turbo is just almost disgusting because of that just crazy boost. It's almost not fair. Round 7, I'm sure you guys may be familiar with a Carl Kitchen.
Did you tie against this person because you were X and 1 at this point, correct?
Yeah, so I knew Carl was playing Greninja, and my buddy who I drove down there with told me, hey, just play it out, And I was like, nah, I've played Carl. He's a good player, and I already know I have it if I just ID with him. I believe we were at the second table at this point, second seed. So we're just like, yeah, let's just ID. Like, it wasn't even hesitation.
Did you look at the like the matchups at all to see like how many X1s there were to see like if there was a possibility anyone would bubble at all?
I didn't, but Carl did. 'Cause I really didn't know how to read all that stuff. I still don't. But Carl did, and he like walked me up there with him. He was like, "Yeah." He like tried explaining it to me, but I don't really understand the tournament setting too much. I just knew that we had good resistance because of everything that had happened earlier. So I knew that we had good resistance, and he did told me like he wouldn't be comfortable IDing unless he knew that he would get it in. You know, and I believe that completely too. And I've met Carl before, or I met Kitchen before, so he did check, and I know that he wouldn't have done it if he wasn't comfortable with it. So ended up working out. He ended up going in first seed, and I think I was fourth. So it went well. Yeah, he was first, and I think I was fourth or fifth.
Did you guys end up playing that last round just to see what would happen, or do you guys just go take a lunch, take a break or something?
Yeah, we just had a quick lunch break. We figured just give them our deck lists right now, and yeah, actually, as soon as we ID'd, the head judge came over and said, "All right, let me get your deck lists right now." So
Okay.
yeah, so we actually did know at that point too. Um, so that was nice. It was really nice though, just because after round 4, I haven't had this feeling in a Pokemon tournament in a while. But like after round 4, I was like, "Oh, I got into top 8." Like that was it. I already knew I did. So just having that feeling was pretty nice. Um, Top 8. Now this is when it all got pretty dicey. I ended up playing against Chris Collins, Poke Beach writer. Good guy, really good guy.
Yeah, I've heard of him. He's really good.
Oh, he's got like 600 points, I think, already. He was telling me that he only wanted to make it to top 4 so that he could get a states mat. I'm like, that's cool. I just wanted to make top 8 so I can make top 8. And I told him I just wanted to make it with something different, which I was able to. But he's playing Night March, and he had seen my earlier games. Yeah, he'd seen my earlier games and whatnot, so he was pretty familiar with what I was playing. And he knew Toad was the only decider of the matchup. Now, I really wish that I'd played this matchup specifically against him just to see what he would have done so I could have prepared for it. Because matches, I play test against other people, they play differently. And it's just, levels of players and level of thought and all that. Different levels of thought, different levels of players. But,
Yep.
and ultimately what ended up happening is, and of course, before we even sat down, he did know to watch out for the Toad, but I don't really think that was really detrimental. Ended up getting the Hex turn 1, and I won the dice roll. Couple turns into the game, he ended up just scooping. I think it was like 10 minutes into the game, but he like told me. He did the math. He knew what was left in his deck, and he knew he was going to get Quaking Punched every turn, so he knew it wasn't going to work out. Just because of what was left in his discard was still in the deck, and I got rid of his energies, and he knew I had a 0-6 in my hand.
Yeah.
So he knew that he either had to attach Sky Return, and then send up a lone Pumpkaboo and then get killed, or just leave the lone Shaman, but then it could just get killed by the Mewtwo as well. So he ended up just scooping it to save on a matter of time.
Yeah, that's probably the best play.
Yeah, smart players, they will realize once they lost the game, they've lost the game, go on to the next one.
Yeah, you could either play out an extra 10 to 15 minutes, try to see if you could possibly win out, or you can just do the math and go, all right, I'm probably not going to win out, so I'll just scoop this game for sure and try to win the next two games quickly.
Yes, and he's one of those players that thinks about it. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
Go on to game two. Uh, he had one of the most explosive turns I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure he played out all three of his shaman, and I think he had like 10 night marchers in the discard, so he was ready for whatever.
Woo!
He was like literally, he was like, all right, I got ready to shaman lock you, I got ready to night march you, whatever you want to do. And I actually ended up missing turn two. What did I miss? I believe I missed the turn two Hex Maniac, and I let him knock out a Hoopa. Or not a Hex Maniac, a Quaking Punch. And I remember thinking there's no point Hex Maniacing already because he's already played Shaman and all that. Hex Maniac's really only good against Night March turn one, unless they haven't, overextended too much, but he went way over the rocket, so.
What you could have, like, what I probably would have done there is try to get the toe with the Fighting Fury belt on DC. Did you try doing that at all?
I tried it and I wasn't able to get the Fighting Fury belt, which is why I ended up deciding not to Quaking Punch. So it's a matter of if I can just keep him locked or not. So he ended up knocking out the Hoopa. It's all good and said, whatever. I sent up Toad, Quaking Punch, and I used Quaking Punch and Megaphone, so I knocked out his Joltik. Actually, I believe I knocked out his Joltik.
Nice.
And yeah, so it was nice. And then but this is when he sent up Shaman. And at this point, he has three Shaman on the field and then one Night Marcher. And he just starts the Shaman loop. So he'll do 30, send up another Shaman, and I can Quaking Punch, but he'll just send up another Shaman. So the Shaman loop started happening. At this point, I was just like, all right, well, he's going to Shaman loop. I'll just try to run him out of some other resources and set up a Mewtwo. But I didn't start setting up the Mewtwo until too little too late, pretty much, because what ended up happening was we'd both be down to two prizes, and at some point, whenever he'd finish his turn, and whenever it would come into my turn, all he would have is a lone Shaman with nothing on it, because he just sent it up after using Sky Return.
Yeah.
And Quaking Punch obviously is never going to knock out a Shaman if it's just Sky Returning. So I realized that was his game plan a little too late during game two. And I kind of tried mixing up game plans. I went from trying to keep Toad alive and Quaking Punch to Mewtwo one-shot back to, I should try to keep this last Toad alive. So, this thought process went all haywire. But it came down to final turns. I actually had a Pokemon Center Lady in my hand, and my Toad got hit by a Night March for like one. He had 30 health left on him or 20 health left on him to the point where a Sky Return would knock him out. That's how much he had left. And I don't know why. I didn't play any supporters, so I don't know why. This was literally the only misplay I think I've actually made throughout 4 weeks of state tournaments, to be honest with you. This is the only one that I remember. But I had the Pokemon Center Lady in my hand, and I chose not to use it. Had I used it, he would not have been able to use the Sky Return to knock out my last Toad. He would have had to use Night March, and he was not able to. So by doing that, ultimately, I literally put the game in his hands pretty much at that point. It was a huge, huge misplay. And I just thought about it at the time, and I was like, I'm going to use this next turn on another Toad, or on the same Toad if I can pick it up, or on another Toad if it gets hit, so I can retreat this one. But it was my last Toad, and I knew it was my last Toad, so I just went all haywire. It was a big misplay, and I even sat there and thought about it for like a minute or two. So that was pretty stupid of me.
Was the top 8 the next day, or was it the same day as Swiss?
Same day.
Okay, so you're probably just a little tired at that point.
Yeah, it was getting there. Running off of like 7 hours of sleep in the back of a tiny car and all that stuff too, But it happens. I know it happens. Pokemon Center Lady was still one of my favorite cards in the deck. So, but that ended up going pretty poorly. I think I scooped as soon as he actually knocked out that Toad. I realized how big of a misplay it was, and I realized I wasn't going to be able to knock out that Shaman because I hadn't started setting up a Mewtwo. So, like, two, cool, that's it, game three. My game three, I burned so hard, and I missed the Hex Maniac
Ah,
a lot, and I missed it. And his
was it
turn,
prized?
it wasn't prized. I just missed it. I used like multiple trainer mails. I used Battle Compressor trying to get it in there. Ultra Ball, I drew up a Shaman. Um, had a pretty decent hand. I worked out some stuff. I even had like Belt and I'm pretty sure double colorless, so I was able to get a Toad ready on my turn one. So when it was just draw of the luck. It didn't work. Um, this was boom. Then he goes, and I don't believe that he actually night marched me on his first turn. At least I don't think he took a knockout. I don't think that he did. The game three ended up being our absolute closest game. Probably the best game I've played in a tournament actually, in quite a while. But game three, it was pretty much a matter of quaking punch, and then whenever the damage got up there, I would have to AZ or well, AZ would usually be the best bet. Pokemon Center Lady would help with the little bits of damage from Shaman, but AZ was really for the Night March attacks. And then send up another Toad. It was really important that I try not to let him knock out a Toad if I can, for as long as I can, just to try to keep him from taking those extra two cards. Ultimately, that was really the biggest thing, though, was just not letting him take out my two Toads, because I only ran two. Had I had three, these games might have gone a little bit differently, just because I would have forced him to take out three Toads instead of two and something else. So, I don't know. I didn't run Super Rod. That's another card that I was thinking about running that could have been helpful. I don't know. This list is a little bit tight looking at the way it goes. But as the game three goes on, he has a pretty great turn one since he didn't get hexed. I believe he actually played down all of his Shaman again. So both games that he didn't get hit with that hex, he was able to just blow up, more than anybody I've seen with Night March. And he was able to, but I think that he avoided using the Quaking Punch because he didn't want to. I think that the way it worked, he wasn't taking the knockout, so he didn't want to do it. And it was on a Mewtwo. I think that's what it was. If I'm actually remembering right now. Yeah, game three. I wish that I had game three streamed. That would have been pretty cool. Or the whole top 8 streamed. But as the game goes on, I forget exactly how it goes. It looks very one-sided on my side. Like I thought that I was going to win it. But then something happened where he gets this Dimension Valley in the middle of the game off of his Pumpkaboo. And he's actually able to wipe out my first Toad that only had, I think, 60 damage on it. So when that happened, I had to send up another Toad. And I had to Quaking Punch and Megaphone. I still didn't knock out the Pumpkaboo. And then I'd do another Quaking Punch, knock out his second Pumpkaboo. So at this point, I'm up 1 prize. He's up 2. And he sends up another Joltik, actually. And he attacks, doesn't knock out my Toad because I'd used AZ the turn before. Knock out the Joltik. So at this point, we're actually even on prizes. But then my 0-6 and my Quaking Punch and my Judges just start to hit him, He's very, very smart and plays a Teammates, but he doesn't play any of the cards after he gets the Teammates. He's saving them for his next turn, of course, so that he can use Lysander and use the DC and the Dimension Valley that was in his hand. I'm assuming that's what he grabbed. I'm not sure. But I ended up actually getting hit by that, and I forget exactly what the prize counts were, but I believe that I had 1 left, and I believe that he had 2 left. He might have had 4 left, but I'm pretty sure he only had 2 left. And it came down to he had 3 cards left in his deck, and he had to play the DCE, and he had to Sycamore, knowing that he was about to deck himself out, but he had to see if he could get the last Dimension Valley to knock out the last Toad I had. And he's just like, all right, Sycamore, if I get it, good game. If I don't, good game. And Sycamores, and he just flips each card over on the table, and he got it. And he got it. That was it, game 3.
So basically, what Game 3 came down to is, did he prize the Dimension Valley?
Yeah.
Those games are always so fun, but they're always so heartbreaking. You always go, oh, what if that happened, or what if this happened? It's just so close, but...
So close and so far.
Man, those games are the funnest, but they're also the most frustrating and most heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was the most heartbreaking, and that's for damn sure. But I'm glad I lost to Chris though, as opposed to anybody else. I guess he was a really good guy to play with. He made me think about things differently, made me think about future games differently too. And he was a really nice guy too. He told me like he seemed like he was being sincere, not just saying it because he beat me, but he was like that's actually one of the best top 8 games I've ever played. He was like, and I did not think that it was going to be a hard matchup. He's like, I thought that it was going to be a quick stomp because of your Mewtwo, but no, you proved me wrong. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. Those are always the funnest games to play against like people who are really nice and who are kind of friendly for the most part, and those are the best players that are really good, but also at the same time bring out the best in their opponents as well. That always make their opponents better at the end of it. Those are the best players in my opinion.
Absolutely, I agree to that. Yeah.
So,
Um, go ahead.
so oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So what about your list? Uh, what changes did you wish you made, or wish that you did not make, or what stuff at the end of the tournament did you wish you put in the deck?
Really, the only thing I think that could have been very, very helpful was a third Toad. The only thing that I could possibly see myself willing to cut for that, though, would be either a battle compressor,
Yeah.
the Parallel City, or a Mega Turbo. But I really like Mega Turbo. I wouldn't go with that. It probably,
Personally, I would go with the battle compressor.
yeah. And originally, actually, it's funny you said or didn't make because originally I actually only had the 2 battle compressor, and then that third slot it wasn't another Shaman. I'm sorry, it wasn't another Shaman. It wasn't another Toad. I forget what it was, but let me think. I think it was a 4th Shrine of Memories, actually. And so I still had that one Parallel City. And ultimately, I was really, really glad that I didn't play 4 Shrine, just because
Or Shrine 2's too much.
it's way too much. I just wanted to make sure I win the Stadium more. That's why I went with 4. Something that I was really thinking about doing was 2 Shrines, 1 Parallel, and 1 Silent Lab. So
I
I don't
can
know.
see Silent Lab in here.
Yeah, just a little bit of silent lab in there. Throw it in there. Try to hit Night March. Because really, the only thing, looking at this list, the only deck that puts a single sweat on me is Night March. I think that if I had played against Garchomp right, I think I would have been a bit more of a 50-50. I think I could have had a shot. Um, Especially with like Megaphone and Damage Swap, it just makes their Focus Sash almost useless. Um, really, to be honest, yeah, I think that's really it. If we had another state, if we had one more week, I would definitely cut the battle compressor and add the third Toad. Um, something that I also debated was cutting one of my Lysander because I have 2. But what ultimately kept me deciding to keep it was if one's prized, or if the one's prized, well, that sucks. And 2, it's an alternative way to take my knockouts with the damage swap.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I can do that, it was always the play. Like that was, if I could do it, that's the only thing I thought about doing that turn.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it worked out though.
Besides, the more Lysander, the better.
Yeah, right.
Alright.
Something that I would like, I think, would be cool with this deck is instead of Judge an N, but we'll see. We'll see how that works.
And it's not legal yet.
Yeah, not yet. But really quickly though, before I finish off with this, Mewtwo Y, I decided to go with Mewtwo Y instead of Mewtwo X because the Mewtwo Y just seemed easier to do with, all you need is a double colorless and a megaphone, whatever. Or not a megaphone, a mega turbo. But if the X didn't have the weakness to Night March, I think that X would probably be the most dominant thing in the format, to be honest with you. Because he's got so many options in him. And I've tested him a lot. The X, I've come up with some really, really wacky lists for the X version, but yeah, if I could toy with anything, if we could just ban Night March altogether, we can sign a petition. I think we can do it together. We can play X in a tournament. But
I don't think Night March is going to be banned anytime soon, just because it does have a lot of losses. Like, not a lot of losses, it just has like a fair amount of bad matchups where literally people just need to start playing those decks that beat Night March a bit better, really. You know,
yeah, no,
my
I know.
opinion.
I agree. Night March isn't that big of a problem. No, the problem really isn't Night March. It was the hype behind and the still behind Night March because I mean, yeah, Night March got like 60% of the championship points from states. It was also the most played deck.
Yeah,
It's that simple. If everybody played Totina that much, Totina would have had that many championship points, you know?
yeah,
Or YZG. You know, like the reason that I think Trevenant did so well in California was that because there weren't that many dark decks. I didn't see that many dark decks out there. I mean, people weren't playing dark because of Night March for some reason, but you know, I think Trevenant's actually a really good call for the tournaments as well. That was the second deck that I had in the back of my mind. I went out there with a group of friends and they were playing, or with a friend, and he was playing Manectric Toad Bats. And he had a really good list. He won all of our city tournaments with it. So, like all three of the ones in Vegas, he got first and third with the same list. So, I was debating playing that pretty thoroughly, but I decided not to just because I wasn't too comfortable with it. You know, I was driving down there and I'm like looking at his list and I'm looking at my Mewtwo list. And I'm just like, what do I actually know? You know, and I know Mewtwo, so that's definitely something to also keep in mind though for anybody going out there to make a deck. Just remember, if you're a good player, then you know it doesn't matter. Just if you're a good player, then you can make a good deck, make a consistent deck, and you know your bad matchup you take in a couple of things for that bad matchup, and it could be a 50-50. It could be a 60-40. You know, it comes down, a lot of this comes down to did you think about what you're going to play against? And did you think about what can counter it? And that's really it. You know, you just got to test and think about things. Um, I'm still really glad I made the deck choice. My goal really was just to make top 8 with Mewtwo. So being able to do it was pretty cool.
So what decks were you nervous about playing going into states, other than of course Night March?
Um, Night March being the biggest. Trevenant seemed it was an iffy thing to think about. Like I thought Trevenant could be either fun or it could be really crappy because if they get the turn one lock and you miss your dimension values, then you're gonna have a pretty bad time. So I didn't really want to play against Trevenant. Playing against Toad, I wasn't too worried about it as long as they weren't playing the Toad to I forget what the list was called, but there was a pretty nasty list going around that was like Toad with 2 or 3 Team Flare grunts, 2 or 3 0-6, and then like 4 hammers and 4 time puzzles and 4 like super scoop ups, like and I think a 2 slow king with red card. Like
Ooh,
that was something that I played against because some friends from California were visiting, and I tested against similar decks like that, and that was something that I did not want to play against. I wasn't worried about Toad Tina
why not?
because if they go Toad, see a Toad Tina deck, they're going Toad, then there are a couple of their resources are going to be going towards keeping Tina as well. So that means they're not going to be running as much disruption. You can handle a couple of crushing hammers. You can handle a couple of quaking punch because 30 a turn really doesn't do anything. When I'm playing against Toad, what I try to do as best as I can is not set up my bench too much and just set up one Mewtwo, maybe another one on the bench if I need to, but if I can avoid it, I will. And just try to get up so I can damage swap at some point. Damage swap one of their Shaman. And as soon as I do that, all the damage is off my side of the field, and I'm ahead in prizes. And that's actually how all of my Totina games went in testing. Was more or less that. It was just a matter of waiting for the right time to do anything. And once that would happen, a lot of the time when I'm testing, my opponent's thought process would think, oh crap, now I have to do something with Tina. Then they'll send up Tina with 4 energy to attack, Mewtwo. At that point, whenever they attack with Tina, unless my hand is just abysmal, I'm going to knock out that Tina, one way or another.
Hex.
And I'm not going to be item locked either, so I can set up another Mewtwo, and that's actually how it went a couple of times. I would just pass my turns by attaching energy and Mega Evolving, attach, Mega Evolve, attach again, Mega Evolve, or just like Lysander and try to stall, or I'd use Pokemon Center Lady, and just until I was ready. And then when I was ready, I would do it, and that would pretty much be it. It was just really a big matter of waiting and waiting. But there was a game in California though. I think it was like round 4. She got like 4 crushing hammers in a matter of 2 turns, and that was just silly. You don't expect that to happen. So, that'd be pretty bad. And then I wasn't worried about Mega Ray the first 2 weeks, or I wasn't really worried about it. But then when I played against it and lost and tied to it here in Nevada, I got a little worried just because the one prize trade, prize for prize, and they can do it, I think, almost easier because I need 7 energy to knock out, a Mega Ray, but they only need to have 8 bench Pokemon to keep doing it. So I thought definitely keep 4 stadiums and just add a Parallel City in there, because if I can ever Parallel City and Quaking Punch a Mega Ray deck, that's almost like just scooping right there. So that was one thing that I was really worried about, but I didn't make that change. I didn't make it necessarily for week 3. I only made it so I can test with it and get ready for week 4. But
So, yeah, we're running a little out of time here. So, going into states, how many championship points did you have? And at the end of all this states month, how many championship points do you have now?
I started at 60 and I ended at 110, so I only got the top 850.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So, do you feel confident in making your Worlds invite?
My last bet is going to be on Utah Regionals. Pretty much, if I make top 4 there, I make it to Worlds, which I know is like if I make top 4 with 300 other people there, but I am pretty confident. I'm going out there with a group of friends. We have really good support, and
You said you have 110, right?
yeah, I'm at 110 right now.
So so even if you win regional, which is a total of 150, you'd still be a 40 short. So you need to do well a couple league challenges if you've yet to max out, which it seems like you have yet to do so.
Yeah, I haven't actually had a single league challenge. Vegas hasn't had a single league challenge. We're getting our very first one this Saturday, and we're supposed to get one every month from now on. So I'm assuming that I'll be able to push off those 60 points or so that I would need from league challenges.
All right.
Assuming. And then another thing is if I do manage to do well enough, if I'm at like 260 or 280 or whatever
Yeah.
before Nats comes around, I'll probably make it out to Nats, because at that point, top 64, I think in Nationals gets X amount of points. I have to
They
see
get a lot of points, I think.
Yeah, I think up to 120 something get points at Nationals. So, I'm fairly certain it's a decent amount. I haven't looked into it too much though. I'd rather not think about the points as much as just what I have to do, and I know I have to do really well. At this Utah tournament. I believe it's. I forget now. Actually, my group's going to. We're going to the May 28th one or May 27th. So it's Utah. I think I might have said Seattle earlier, but it's Utah. Salt Lake City.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I said Seattle the first time, but no, we're going to Salt Lake City. So that'll be fun. I'm excited. See how it goes. I like expanded a lot more than standard.
So, yeah.
Mm.
So thank you for. Well, actually, wait. I wanted to ask you. What decks are you looking at going into expanded?
Going into expanded, I'm thinking very heavily about Trevenant. I think Trevenant's got some juice behind it.
It's top 2 in both Florida and Oregon.
Yep. I think it's definitely a great choice. Something I'm gonna toy with a little bit, and it's only because, see, I'm bad with dates, but Fates Collide will be legal by the next round of regionals, right?
I believe the last week of regionals.
The last, so not Salt Lake. Okay,
It's
something I would
it's
toy
going to be
with.
in Wisconsin, I believe.
Okay, because see, Alakazam is something that I would also debate playing if I could toy with it a little bit. I have to see how that goes, though. I haven't even looked at a list I just know I really like Alakazam, and I'm one of those guys that I'll try to make anything work. If I like a deck, I like a deck. I like a Pokemon, I'll try to make it work. Mm. So looking at that, my number 3 things that I'm looking at right now, Trevenant. Dark's something that I look at every now and then too, but I haven't played Dark in such a long time. Um, and then finally, I did pretty well with Tyrantrum and Expanded. I got top 2 in a cities within top 8
Nice.
in other cities, expanded ones. So Tyrantrum's another thing I'm looking at. Probably gonna play Tyrantrum.
It's fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fun game. And I didn't get to play it in standard because Greninja's been out, but in expanded I don't expect to see Greninja, so at least not too much.
Mm. So yeah. So thank you for being with us today. That was um, we've been recording for so long. I actually forgot your name. What's your name again? Sorry.
Good go, my friend.
Miguel.
hmm
This was Miguel Adrio. Adrio?
Yep, Adrio.
Adrio. Sorry, my bad.
Hey, no worries, Seth. I appreciate you guys having me too. It was fun.
Oh, no problem. Thank you once again for sharing your list with us. And I'm Sammy 15, the Dragon Team here. Hope you guys liked today's video. We'll be doing future recordings and interviews in the future, so please stay tuned for that. And again, please like, subscribe, all the silly stuff. And I shall see you guys again next time.
See you, Sethy.